Hello, welcome to the channel. My name's Andrew. Today I want to be looking at how we can use the spectral effects in Ableton Live to put together quite an interesting rack that creates some quite unusual sounds, a little bit metallic at times, but you can transform drum beats, vocals, anything into some really quite strange soundscapes. Best way to describe some of the sounds you can generate. Anyway, have a listen. Quick listen, and then if you're interested, as always, I'll show you how the rack works and then finally how you can put it together. You'll need Ableton Live 12 Suite for this, though. These effects only come in that version. At the moment I have a drum beat here playing, and I'm passing it through the rack, and I'll explain very briefly what's going on in the rack. We'll just close those up for a second so we have a bit more room. I have here a couple of effects. A spectral resonator. As I mentioned in the intro, this rack can only be built with Ableton Live 12 Suite version. These effects are only available, unfortunately, in that version. So we have spectral resonator, we have spectral time, and then I have some other things at the back here we'll come to, an LFO, compressor, and a limiter in the rack. Simple stuff, but I'll just concentrate on these two here. Now the resonator, I'm not 100% sure what's going on inside, but it seems to somehow take the incoming audio and then in some way resonate it, I guess. I couldn't find any more information. We can click down here, there's not so much info on it, but we'll just accept what it does. We can change here the pitch of the incoming audio and some other effects which we'll come to. I'll come to this in a second, but maybe the first thing I can do is explain more what's meant by spectral synthesis, if you like, and we can do that here in the spectral time. This is a form of delay, and you can see here in this graph we have in the y-axis up here we have the frequencies, starting from the lower frequencies at the bottom going up to the higher frequencies, and here we have effectively the rhythm, if you like, what's coming in, and I can demonstrate that by going here to the harmonics. This control here, the harmonics here are generated in our resonator, and if I reduce them, you'll see here straight away that we're cutting off the other frequencies, and we're effectively left then with the bass tone here. You can see at the bottom. Now, what does a delay do? Well, if I turn off the delay completely, we just have that thump thump coming in. If I introduce the delay, and let's put it on 100%, you'll see the effect, and we'll give it full feedback. You can see how the tone is being stretched out. We're getting the delay feedback, and if then I were to increase the number of harmonics again, we can pull this all the way up through the frequency range. So that's what you're seeing here. That's the representation. So these stretched out things are effectively the image of the audio, the spectrum. Here we're just seeing the beat, here with the delay. Okay, I hope that's understood. So that gives you an idea of what's going on here. If I drop this down, we're cutting off the frequencies up here, introduce more harmonics, we get the full spectrum. Okay, so I hope that's understood. As I say, I can't really comment much more on the resonator. I really don't know what's going on in here, what it's doing to the frequency range as it comes in. But okay, let's have a look at what's going on in the rack then. What do we have? We have a way here of controlling the pitch in the resonator. So our drum beat is coming in, as I demonstrated. We can take these resonated frequencies and move them around to whatever pitch we want. We can affect the decay time here of these tones. And you see that again represented, let's close it, we see that represented in the graph here. We can also shift in semitones the frequencies. We have some ability here to damp the low frequencies, or we can damp the high frequencies. So you can hear with just these simple 5 controls here, we're already getting quite a few possibilities to alter the tone that's coming in. As I say, drum beat. Then we have here stretch, and I kind of see this like a sampling stretch effect, effectively. We can slow down the speed of the audio, which impacts the pitch, or we can speed up the audio, so it affects the pitch. Set that back to 0. Then we have here a way to modulate some aspects of the pitch here. In this rack here, we can set the rate and a number of semitones we want to modulate it by. That's this function down here, this pitch modulation. Now, I've set the spectral resonator here to wander. You have things like chorus. These are not accessible in the rack. You'd have to go into here. We have a granular engine as well. You can take your pick, choose which you want. I've left it, I like wander. I've left it on wander. Granular is a bit of fun as well. Okay, so that's what we're able to do here. And then, as I say, finally we have control over the number of harmonics that are being resonated in this effects rack. It's oh yes, we have a unison as well. Here, I forgot this one here, which we'll come to in a little bit, but effectively I've tied it to this space here, this space plus freeze function, which when we set to 127, this adds a little bit of unison and does some quite interesting things with the LFO and the spectral time. We'll come to that in a second. Okay, so we have control over the unison as well. Okay, so let's move on then to the spectral time. Here we have our effectively our delay, and we saw that a little bit in the intro. We can set a time for our delay. We can set the amount of feedback and the mix. Okay, so it behaves like a normal delay, but it's affecting the spectral elements of the audio coming in. Now I've got this on freeze to delay. You could set it to delay freeze, but this is how I set it up. I've not really played around with the tilt or the mask. The tilt affects, kind of offsets the delay to lower frequencies or higher frequencies. so the time for each delay. You can have a look at the info here if you want to learn more about those things. I'll just concentrate on the rack and how I've built it. Okay, so we'll turn down our delay a little bit, and then we come into some modulation. I have what I've called space modulation. Let's open this up a bit. And this is the rate. Effectively, we're controlling this LFO here at the back. So as soon as I turn it on, you'll see that certain parts of the rack are now modulated. We're modulating the decay time here, the tone shift. That back to zero. We're modulating the tone shift and also the number of harmonics. You can see your rate here. Let's set that on, let's set that on 1 bar. And this is the amount of modulation. You'll see the bars increase, and that's a random modulation. And I'll explain when we get to this why. Then we have here the freeze crossfade. Which I believe, where was that? Oh, it is in this one, sorry, excuse me. It is in the delay time. So we have a crossfade here, and what we can do is we can introduce a freeze function, which I'll activate now. And let's just turn that off for a second to explain that. Now, we're also modulating with this space rate. We're modulating this very slightly. So if we set this to below 127, then we're just affecting the stereo field of the audio. You can hear that. I can introduce a widening of the stereo field, but once I get to 127, I've set the rack up so that the freeze activates, and we're effectively capturing this delay here. We're freezing this delay. How can I demonstrate that? Well, let's see. There we go. It captured that. As I change the audio, we're capturing a different freeze. So we have a way of freezing the delay sound. Now what I've done with the rack is I've tied this freeze function at 127 also to this modulation here. So as I introduce this, the modulation rate, you'll see that I'm at 1/32 here on the LFO. I'm randomly turning the freeze on and off. Now I can slow this down if I don't want it to freeze so often. And using this function, it's frozen. Even with a drum beat, I can start to get pad-like effects. Turn it off at 127. This function no longer works. So we have to be at 127 for this to activate. Otherwise, as I say, you just have the stereo panning. So those are the things that are possible. You can also randomize, as always, the rack, see what comes along. But using these controls, you have a lot of possibilities with sound creation. So you can set your pitch here. Decay time. Harmonics. Now this does work as well on other sounds, of course. Let's just open up I have some snapshots here. So let's go to the piano, what you heard in the intro. This is this. also a way of making very sort of like pad-like atmospheric sounds. Lots of possibilities. I say just tweak around. I build these racks, and I kind of know when the time is right to say this is done. When I find myself just playing around for an hour or two, just tweaking the sound, looking for different things. What else? My favorite audio or vocal clip in Ableton must be the worst audio clip ever, but I enjoy using it. We'll have the monks, and you heard this in the intro. Just turns them into these angelic tones. And this isn't frozen, this one. Let's freeze it and see what happens. Turn this up to 127. Now the freeze is being modulated along with everything else. And you can just let it run. Maybe we can turn this up. Okay, I hope that's understood. Let's have a look then how to put this rack together. It's quite simple. There's, as always, a few things you have to just be careful of. We have to set up each of the effects, and then we have to map them correctly, and finally put in our constraints here to get this to work. Oh, sorry, I realized I forgot to mention what the crossfade does here. Now, the crossfade actually controls the time here that we transition when the freeze is on. So let's turn off this, and we have this freeze function here. Now if I turn that down to its lowest setting, 0, then we have a fade in time of 2 milliseconds and a fade out time of 3 seconds, and I can adjust this up to a fade in time of 3 seconds for this frozen audio if I turn it off, and a fade out of 10. So if I have something, let's keep it on this. Let's turn it down a bit so we can hear it, and maybe turn this up. So when I introduce the freeze, it'll take 3 seconds to fade in. When I turn it off, it would take 10 seconds to fade out to go back to the original audio. So I can play with this value for maybe drum beats or whatever. Okay, I just want to explain. I realized I'd missed that. Okay, let's see how it's put together then. To begin with then, you'll need an audio effects rack. You can find that here in audio effects rack. Just drag and drop it in. You'll open your macros here. You'll have something like macro 1, macro 2, macro 3. I've renamed these here. You can, as I say, use my names or choose your own. Let's open these up because we'll be using all of the macros in the rack. So then we need to drop in our effects. We'll take the spectral resonator, the spectral time. Let's close that for a second. Then we have, after that, the LFO. So we'll drop the LFO in here. I used, as a compressor, I used the glue compressor. And finally, we'll put a limiter at the end just to tame any loud volumes. Okay, so that's the effects we'll be using. Now we need to do a little bit of setting up, so we can, maybe we'll start here with a glue compressor, because that's quite easy to set up. So I set this to threshold -14. And the makeup I set at 6 decibels. Then we can close, there's nothing to do on the limiter. We'll close the compressor. And the LFO we have to, well, we'll come back to the LFO because there's a little bit of mapping we can do here, but some of the simple stuff we can set up. We can quantize the rates here. We can also set this smooth value to 100, and we will choose as a waveform the random. We'll come and do the mapping in a second, so we'll close that for a second. Let's have a look at the spectral time. This one here we want it on crossfade. I think that's everything. Oh, I set the resolution here to high. That was just a personal choice. That's the resolution of the display here. Don't have to. Okay. The time mode we need to set here to notes as well. And that, I believe, is everything set up there. So now we can have a look at the spectral resonator. This one here I set to wander, but you could choose granular if you like. You can select these at any time. I also quantized the frequency here to notes. Is there anything else? This value here I set at 7.5. This is the amount of unison detune, if you like, or so you can play with this value if you want. I've set mine to 7.5. Just having a look, I think that's everything. Oh, we need to quantize the harmonics here, so we'll select that one. Okay, the rest we will come to, we will map. So we can now start doing our mapping here. The first one we'll map is the frequency here. We'll map that to the tone pitch. Then we have the decay value here. Map that here. The tone shift, which is this box here, shift. Put it there. Low frequency damp here. High frequency damp here. Then we have the stretch value here, this box. We'll map that here. Now we have the pitch modulation here, and the pitch rate, which is this mod rate here. Okay, so they're all mapped. We can now map the harmonics here, and then we have to switch now to the spectral time, and here we want the time value here, delay time, the delay feedback here, and the delay dry wet mix here. Then we have the values for our space mod, space rate. So we'll have to close this one and go to our LFO, and we have to do a little bit of mapping here now with the LFO. We want to do this space plus freeze macro here, and we're going to set this value to -2%. Let's just open this up. So I set this to -2. Then we also need to map here the tone shift here. This I set to -20. Get that on -20. If you just hold the shift button, you can do it in smaller increments. There we go, -20. Then we have the tone decay here, this macro here. This one I set to 25. There we go. And finally, the number of harmonics here. We'll map this one as well, which I set at 10%. Okay, so that's the LFO setup. We just have these space mod and space rate to set up now. So the space rate, we map this on off for the LFO here. So we have a way of turning LFO on and off. And we also need the sync rate here. map that here. Then we have the depth here, which goes to the space mod. Okay, now we need to map a few things here to these here. So we'll go back to our spectral time, and here we have the freeze button. We want to map that. We also want to map this stereo width value here to space plus freeze. And in the freeze crossfade, we're going to map both the in and the out values. And then the final one we need to map is in the spectral resonator. Here it's the unison value. So we'll also map that here to space plus freeze. Okay, so that's everything mapped. All we need to do now is put the values in here, these constraint values. I'll put a screenshot up for you. You just punch in the numbers, pause the video, punch them in, and then I'll see you after that. And we can just test the rack, make sure everything's working. So, okay, there's not so many to put in, so that should have gone quite quickly. Okay, let's see then if the rack works. We can close that. You save your rack here and it will appear in your user library here under presets, audio effects rack. You'll find it in there. So you can drop it into any project you like. Let's just have a look then what else we have. That's, I say, save that here. You have your snapshots. Once you get your macros set up how you like them, you can create a new snapshot and then save the positions of the macros. You would then again need to resave this to preserve them. On some of these, I believe the tone pitch, I excluded that from randomization. I also excluded, let's have a look. I think there's not many I excluded. Here I excluded the space plus freeze from randomization. Let's have a look. I think that's all of them. Okay, so that's it. So you can just click random and see what comes out. Should we try that? See if that works. There we go. We're playing back the drum beat here. If it sounds a bit dull, it's because you look at the charts here, you'll see, or the spectrum here, you'll see that don't have many harmonics. Add reverb if you like, whatever, and then just play around. Okay, I hope this video has been useful, as always, and take care. See you in the next video. Bye bye.